Cool. And we are live. Awesome. Well, first of all, welcome and thank you to everyone who has registered for today's webinar, Docs as AI Knowledge Bases, Scaling Customer Experiences in 2025. I'm Hannah Carhill. I'm Growth Marketing Manager at Hackmember, and I will be your host for today. Throughout this webinar, we'll be exploring how docs aren't just for humans anymore, but a knowledge base for AI to understand your product. Whether you're writing docs, scaling support, or trying to keep your team aligned, consider this webinar your playbook for the AI era. Joining me, I have the awesome Wang, co-founder of Mintlify, who are at the forefront of creating the next generation of documentation that is AI native, beautifully designed, and built for developers. I'm also delighted to welcome Eli Winderbaum as a guest speaker today. Eli is the head of customer experience at Captions, a leading generative video and creator tools company based in New York City. With over a decade of experience in customer experience leadership, Eli has built and scaled operations across enterprise SaaS, fintech, consumer banking, and crypto. In his current role at Captions, Eli is responsible for scaling customer experience for users in over 180 countries. Before I hand over to Han and Eli, a quick note about the chat feature. Please feel free to add in any questions you have within the chat, and we'll try to answer as many as possible towards the end of the webinar. Okay, that's enough from me. Now it's time to get started. We'll get into the good stuff. So to kick things off, let's talk about the changes we've seen when it comes to AI and docs, because historically docs have been written for human consumption and now they're being read by AI. So my first question to you both to kick things off is, how important is it that docs are accurate and up to date so that they can be read and understood by AI?
Han, do you want to take this one first?
I got it. Yeah, absolutely. Well, first and foremost, Hannah, thank you so much for a really kind introduction. And to everyone who's joining, thanks so much for taking the time to, hear, for the next little bit, me and Eli just ramble about our thoughts on the space. Really appreciate you guys taking the time. So when I'll answer this question with a quick story, so I hope you guys can bear with my backdrop for a second. I remember when we started building Mintlify, like over 2.5 years ago, just a little over 2.5 years ago. It was off the very simple premise of, hey, we just wanted to build better docs, right? Like we've, as developers for both our entire lives, me and Hanbi, my co-founder, we're just like, hey, we just wanted a platform to build better developer experience, Stripe level documentation for the average blokes, who couldn't otherwise, have the resources to do it. And that was off the very simple idea of it. And over the past 2.5 years, I think what we've seen on our side is probably the biggest transformation on the role of docs and how it relates to, actually engaging with the end developer. And it's really all through AI. What started as, docs that are really meant for human consumption, just writing content that is read by someone else on a static website, is now almost like, like heavily indexed by AI. And so the content that you're writing is now no longer just for people, but for AI. And so for a content, platform like ours, we had to rethink the entire product. How do you build the platform in a way that's like, like half for humans, half for AI, and then all of the, the complexity of that I think we'll be going into in the next little bit.
Yeah. I can answer the question slightly different, being that I'm responsible for customer support and customer experience. Obviously, over the last 2 years or even longer, providing support to customers was basically done by human agents on your team, your customer support reps. And over the last 2 years, there's been this explosive growth of not just chatbots, but actually AI agents. And I think if you've noticed, you haven't heard the word chatbot in a while, it's now AI agents. But your AI agents, as well as your human agents, can only provide answers, relevant answers, as good as the documentation that you have, whether it be external or internal. But if you think about it, when an AI agent or a human agent is replying to a customer, they need the context, they need the up-to-date information. And so we use Mintlify as our basically source of truth for documentation. So again, being used by our external customers, human customers, being read by AI, and then internally being read by our human agents on our team, as well as our AI agent.
Yeah. Yeah, I actually have a question on this because I was thinking about this yesterday as I was jotting down some notes for the webinar today. How have you seen the difference in how you think about maintaining the knowledge base before and after AI? Like if you were looking to scale a team of, let's say, like, 5, 10, 50 support agents, what was the approach to doing it then versus doing it now?
I'm not sure this is the answer you're looking for, but I've now moved from requesting that our product managers and engineers give us as much notice as possible before feature launches to JIT, just in time. I think because of Cursor and Windsurf and Bolt, like Codex, Claude Code, the amount of code and commits being changed into the app are just, there's so much being changed in your app. It's very hard downstream to keep up with all of those. So rather than have people tell us, oh, we're going to launch this in a week or a day, I actually just said, launch it. And we need to change our process to be able to keep the documentation up to date. So we've drastically changed that to being like just in time. And I think the reality is anyone who's listening in on this, maybe you were in charge of documentation, maybe you're a customer support manager, customer support operations, you're responsible for updating docs. I used to love like spending hours updating docs, and then you hit publish, and then you get a Slack 5 minutes later that something changed. You go, it's already out of date. Like it's just the second you hit publish, it's out of date. So I think the biggest change has just been like the sheer number of times that I'm hitting publish. There just needs to be like a more efficient way. Yeah. And then also I think obviously AI can play a part in this and like helping you understand what's out of date, what needs to be updated, either nudging you or actually making some of those changes automatically. I think that's all to be determined in the next probably couple weeks, couple months, because things are moving so quickly.
Absolutely. You felt the pace of like just change and development just increased rapidly over the past.
And I'm not an engineer, to be clear. Han is an engineer. I know there's different styles of like waterfall and, you've got 2-week cycles, 3-week cycles, 1-week cycles. It seems like there are no more cycles anymore. I don't know how you and Hanbi run your team anymore, but there are broad things that need to get done. And I just don't know if there's this like 1-week cycle or 2-week cycle that exists anymore. It just seems to be consistently updating based on how engineers are changing how they do their job.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think we're feeling the same on our side. And it's really funny because it's not something that I feel like I have been able to pinpoint to like the source of it in some ways, because it's not like AI, for instance, is completely like, writing big chunks of our code base in the sense of like, you just tell them to do it, but noticeably faster. I think this not only comes from our team, like to your point, there are no sprints anymore. Right? Like, it's like things are out, like they're out like today or tomorrow, and I think the same goes for like, especially the AI forward companies that we've seen and work with. Like the entire ecosystem is just like just going around in rapid pace, and things are just constantly changing. Like every single few days, it seems like someone's launching like this big feature, this like, this new thing, and that otherwise I would imagine taking like months to plan, build, to now just being like, okay, it's just tomorrow,
I don't know why, Han. I just had this thought of like using Microsoft Word in middle school, and the version of Microsoft Word was like 2007 or 2012, and it was like 3 years until there was a new version. And now that's just like insane to think that someone could spend 2 years or 3 years or 1 year or even a month until the next version. I don't know about you, but we use Ashby as our talent, like HR and like talent sourcing. They're notorious at the bottom left. It just goes, there's a new version available. We recommend refreshing. And then like 5 minutes later, they're like, we recommend refreshing. Like they must be committing so much code and so many changes.
Yeah.
I'm always out of date. I need to refresh. I don't even use the app that often. I'm only hiring for like 2 roles, but
Yeah.
I'm sure it's the same thing with you. I'm sure.
Yeah.
When I log into the Mintlify dashboard, there are little things that have changed every time I log in, every day or 2, or maybe even hour. Maybe it's even more than I realize.
Yeah, no, it's like you're looking at like 10 commits to prod every single day, at least, probably.
Exactly.
I think that the feeling of release cycles have just dramatically shortened for sure. Like things are just coming out left and right, and it's crazy just to kind of live in this experience and kind of see this dramatic acceleration of like, you know, product being built faster than ever. And I feel like yeah, like definitely, it really does feel like we're kind of living in this really like, you know, transformative era where there's going to be a before and after of these years.
Yeah. I've always been kind of engineering adjacent. I've always worked with engineers, working with product managers. I think now with these IDEs and Cursor, Windsurf, like it seems like there's actually even more willingness to allow non-engineers to commit code. Just the other day, I needed to change like a calendar link that existed in our app to go book a meeting with me because we launched a new product, Mirage Studio, and I wanted people to book me throughout the day, like 2 per day, and so I can actually talk to customers and understand what they're thinking. And I told my CEO, who is an engineer, hey, I need to make this code change. You know, should I put in a linear issue? This is so small, I can just tap on someone's shoulder. He goes, why don't you do it? And I was like, oh, you want me to commit code? Like this is. You know, we're a 4-year-old company. We have like a lot of customers. This is critical. He's like, oh, just text change. I'll show you to do it. I go, I'm not really a GitHub expert. You know, I learned a little because of Mintlify, but he kind of coached me through it. And now I can make these little changes. And then the next step, and I'm talking to my other friends who work at similar roles as me at other companies. And once they get comfortable, there are non-engineers committing code, especially for the little things, because you want your true engineers to work on like the really important stuff that maybe can't be done, you know, using Claude Code or Codex or whatever.
100%. You know, it's really funny because I have also witnessed that experience like across the board. None so viscerally to me than the experience of a designer transitioning to a software engineer on our side. So for instance, like, you know, the many designers on our team who, you know, previously, you know, had to build something in Figma and then patiently wait for some, you know, front end person to go and implement and like maybe get like, you know, 60% of the way there and then they get pissed off that it's not really implemented right. And then like they couldn't, you know, they had to bug them to get the details right. And I think now it's like, you know, I think the great thing about all this stuff with AI is like not only is it about accelerating engineers so they could spend, you know, less of their brain power doing the mundane stuff, but also that it enables people who otherwise wouldn't be able to, you know, build stuff to then actually go on and, you know, make changes, build MVPs, and just, you know, ship product. And I think that's like something that's, you know, pretty empowering for, you know, the role as well.
So all this to say, by the time more people have committed more code, documentation and knowledge
it's out of date.
needs even more love and attention.
Yeah, absolutely. And on that note, I have a really quick question for you, Eli, which is, I'm curious when you like are like when these changes come in and like you're, you know, running through your just-in-time process of getting these changes in. Walk me through the process that y'all currently have. Like what is that transition from, okay, change is made all the way to docs is updated?
Yeah, it's a multi-step process, and it's obviously being updated every single day. I think what's a few more challenges that we have is that we have an iOS app, an Android app, and a web app. We just launched a second product, and we have an API. So those are 3, 4, 5 different places where the information may be different, and we don't actually keep our iOS app up to date with our Android and vice versa. The other thing is also a lot of companies are using like StatSig and other similar companies where they're gating certain features to test them. So you can, you know, provide a 10% or 50% run A/B test. How does that affect conversion? How does that affect churn? All that. So in all of these challenges, like multi-platform, not every customer has the same feature. It's actually very difficult to update documentation. We made the decision that as soon as 1% of customers have it. So as soon as like more than 0 have it, we decided to update documentation, because the fear would be if we update the documentation only when it reaches 100%, we're probably already behind. I would rather have out of date information that will become true than the other way around. And then in terms of the actual flow, we actually have a Slack channel that is just called like engineering releases. And our head of iOS and Android and our head of web will provide certain updates as things launch with a very featured list with screenshots, information like that. That is what we kind of use as like our PRD equivalent of, okay, these are the changes that happened. Let's go put those into action. And so we will then go into each individual doc that needs updating and make the necessary updates. And then we'll review them. We've gotten pretty comfortable with like everyone being able to get similar to engineering where multiple people can update the docs, but this falls on our head of customer support, Siobhan's shoulders to make sure that it actually gets implemented. Also, another shout out to the person that helped us get onto Mintlify back in December 2023, Mehdi. He's based in Austria, one of our agents, and he's really been the person making the individual changes in Mintlify and pushing them from his local computer and the CLI directly to GitHub. And I guess we can talk about this as well. When I first started with Mintlify, you had to know Markdown. You had to know how to be basically an engineer, or at least adjacent. But now there's a visual editor inside of Mintlify. So basically Mehdi, who is an engineer, can update it that way. And then Siobhan and myself and the rest of the members of the team who don't have as much technical skills, we can just go into the visual editor and make those updates ourselves. But he's more comfortable that way. We're more comfortable our way.
Yeah, makes a ton of sense. And how often are engineers, product team, designers making changes to the content here?
So right now, only if it's API related are we letting them make the updates themselves. If it is, I think we use our app or we use Mintlify and our help center maybe a little bit differently than some of your customers. Obviously, a lot of your customers are like really heavy on API reference, and the majority of people reading them are developers. It's actually reverse for us. Most of our customers looking at our documentation are just kind of normal everyday customers who have never heard the term CLI, doesn't know what Markdown is, doesn't even know what an API is, nor let alone what it stands for. So the majority of those product changes, we are making. I've also seen it, and I've been at companies where the product manager is updating the docs or engineers update the docs. We decided to, again, make that a downstream effect. If there's any changes to our API, we collaborate more on those because it's just a little bit more technical. Your API playground is like super easy to use, but when it comes to APIs, usually we'll kind of work with engineers. But those changes aren't nearly as frequent as like in-app customer-facing product changes.
100%. That makes a ton of sense. And tell me a little bit about the role of the content of the docs going into the support agent. So I know you guys are using ParaHelp. We use ParaHelp as well. Highly recommend the folks listening to go check them out. It's a really great product. They help us automate a lot of our support QE, support questions, so that a lot of the low-hanging fruit, if you will, of questions that's easy to respond to are automatically dealt with and engaged. And Eli actually got us onto ParaHelp and gave a really strong recommendation. We were looking around for solving this ourselves, gave them a try, loved it. And now ParaHelp, I think, covers about like 40% of our entire support backlog, which has been great. And we're only seeing it go up, and we're more excited for, as models improve, as we build better docs ourselves, that it covers more surface area as well. But tell me through your experience, how have you seen that change, customer support, customer experience, and the space in general?
Yeah. This is an area like I talk about a lot. I think ParaHelp for us, we're seeing like 65% resolution rate. I think at first we thought that AI agents and chatbots would be able to take that low-hanging fruit, as you said. And like as we've worked with them and evolved, I think there's a lot of platforms out there that are getting 50, 60, 70. I know that some of ParaHelp's customers are getting like 90%, and they're getting serious volume. I think it's like broken down into two pieces. One is the knowledge that it has, and the knowledge is coming from an external source like Mintlify or whatever help center you use. as well as internal documentation and procedures. So that could be a Notion doc, a Guru doc. It could be a PDF of procedures. How does, what do we tell? What is in scope and out of scope? So for instance, if someone asks us to interpret our terms of service or privacy policy, we've instructed our AI agent, we call our agent Sam, so I'll call him Sam from now on, Sam to not answer those and to forward those to a human agent. So again, the first piece is like knowledge. And I think updating that knowledge is done obviously like in Mintlify, as well as self-updating. It has a way to understand if a agent has replied to a question that conflicts with information that it has, it interprets that as being more relevant and will self-update so that it kind of uses the most recent human response as, oh, this is the new correct answer, and it knows whether to do that. So first piece is knowledge. I think the second piece is access. And so ParaHelp is connected to our Stripe, so it can actually do refunds and cancellations and provide coupons on the fly. And it also talks to our Linear, which can read through a list of known issues, and it can also create issues if it is a new one. So I think it's really just the knowledge and the access. And obviously, like, Mintlify is core to one piece of that for us.
Yeah. And I think it's one of the things that we're seeing, going back to what I mentioned earlier about how the role of docs is changing, I think, in the age of AI, is that, again, previously to, the AI era, it's super simple, right? It's like, we write docs, we put them out in website link URL, someone reads docs, hopefully they understand, or hopefully even they find the docs and read them in the first place, because God knows that, people don't. And now it's like, almost, it feels like to me, like an infrastructure piece, almost within a company, because it's used to power, like, support agents now. It's now used for a lot of people to power, like, to enhance their AI IDEs. People just take their docs, right? They would take the markdown content breakdown of that, and I'm happy to go down into like how we've indexed a lot of the content specifically for LLMs and how ParaHelp, for instance, uses it. And then they would take that content and then go build those agents and AI workflows that they need. And in that world, it's all just about providing, like, the LLMs the right information about captions. It's all about providing the right information about how to use your product. And like, that's just like such a critical piece of it. And again, to be very honest with you, I wish I saw this coming. I wish I was a master. I was like, hey, like, this is why, this is important now more than ever when we started. But truly, it kind of felt like there was this mandate that, we found ourselves in, a few years in. And so, to your point, it's like, I think, like, now, in my opinion, significantly more important than it was, just a few years ago.
Yeah, I may have a question here. I'm not sure if it's a question or a statement yet, but maybe you can chime in. I think something that's also underrated about documentation is that it can provide a lot of insights. I think right now you have both a search feature on your docs and an Ask AI feature. And when customers ask us questions inside of our app and it goes to Intercom and goes to ParaHelp, we have all of those like raw data. I think like turning that into insights is really, really helpful. So like when people are searching inside of all of your customers' docs, they then need to figure out, oh, why are people searching for this, or what are people searching for, and what language are they searching in? And so like helping people find their correct docs or the right pages within your docs, but also oftentimes I go through your list of the most asked questions and I scroll and scroll and scroll, and there are things in there that I literally would never have thought anyone would ask. I'm too close to it. I've worked here for 2.5 years. I know how to use captions inside and out. The questions that people ask are either insanely basic or, and like, how could you not know that? But you just take a step back and go, oh, these are new. We have to figure out the first time user experience. We need to consistently find our product market fit. But also there are questions that are asked that you go, oh, okay, I didn't realize the impact that this change had on that. We need to go and change our docs, or we need to go tell product about this. So I don't know. I just feel like you're actually getting a lot of, with documentation, you're giving people information, but also it's a two-way street. You're getting the information as well in different formats.
100%. I actually think I actually have a lot to say on this topic actually, because it's
We
something
have
that we
time.
actually talked to. Yeah, there you go. We have a lot of time. Awesome. So the first and foremost is that analytics for knowledge bases and documentation historically has not been that great, right? Like, you put your Google Analytics tags on there, you put your analytics tracking, or, you name it. And let's say, you see some numbers and let's say your docs gets this month, let's say, I don't know, 5,000 viewers. Great. What are you gonna do with that? Like how does that really help?
Also,
in terms of,
is 5,000 good or bad?
yeah, exactly. Who knows? No one knows. And similarly, even if you had a breakdown of pages, like, let's say you get 1,000 for your quick start page, 2,000 for your installation guide, 3,000 for like your custom homepage or whatever. What does that really tell you? Like, how is that going to actually tangibly lead to anything insightful and actionable? And so for a while, people thought it was, hey, maybe I'll look at the search results, right? Like I'll see what people are searching for. I'll see what they're not searching for. Well, there's a few reasons that doesn't really work. First and foremost is the way search has been traditionally built within a knowledge base or within a docs platform is that, let's say you're typing in a few keywords, like you're literally typing in like 3 letters, like QUI. And then you see the quick start page, you click on the quick start page, that's it. And that's all the data you're ever going to get, And so you're at best inferring that, oh, this person found the quick start page after typing in like the 3 letters, and that's it, really. And again, doesn't lead to a tremendous amount of insights in terms of what are the things they're searching for, what are the things that's missing potentially. And I think that's where the big paradigm shift of like these kind of assistive chatbots. I know we're not really using the term because it got rebranded now in the agent world. But that's like where the role of chatbots, I think, changed analytics on knowledge bases, which is that for the first time ever, people are actually asking full questions inside the docs platform, right? So instead of asking QUI and looking for the quick start page, you're now asking, how do I get started? Right? People are coming in after an issue with, let's say, Mintlify or Captions. They're like, hey, I have a specific product bug I can't figure out. Tell me how to address this. And you're able to get those logs. I have found that the most insightful thing I could ever be doing to improve the quality and content coverage of our documentation is to go through those logs. I actually almost never go through our own analytics, right? We have an analytics thing. I don't look at them, to be honest. In fact, we might sunset it, as a featuring. And I guarantee I don't even think that many people are going to notice. But I know for a fact that if we were to like delete the logs, it would impact our workflow, and talking to some of our customers, it would impact theirs too. People are reading those logs to look at the exact questions people are asking for. To your point, Eli, you're looking at them and seeing which ones people are asking for. And they're more importantly looking at the responses that the AI provides, right? And the sources it's feeding from. So if you ask a question and it's like, hey, I'm sorry, I can't really get to an answer. And then you're looking at the question, you're like, okay, like this should definitely be something that the docs cover. Then what does that tell you on what to do, right?
I think
and so.
Yeah. Sorry, finish.
No, that's it.
Yeah. No, you have me thinking around like, yeah, I don't look at those analytics that much either. And I think I think what ultimately we want to know is when you're, especially in B2B, B2C, it doesn't really matter. You want to know if your documentation successfully prevented a customer interaction that is potentially like more costly. Obviously, in the industry, it's called deflection. And I think what everyone is missing is like the full story of, you have a support seeker, and let's like just go down the funnel. You've got 100 people who are seeking support. How many of those people actually find your help center? How many people browse versus search or use Ask AI? How many articles does that person read? Do they then go on to cancel? Do they then go on to send in a customer support message that a member of your team or AI answers? Yeah. Do they tell a friend? Like, I think what is ever missing in this world is like, what is the true customer journey from support seeker all the way to the end, and how successful are your docs at deflecting those? That's been something that I've always been trying to get to, that like secret number. I think you can infer a lot but I think like that user journey, that's the user journey I care about. Obviously, our paid marketing team cares about conversion on social media to registration, and then our product people care about the conversion within the app. I care about the customer support seeking journey.
Yeah, absolutely. So in that world, it seems like kind of the quality of docs is almost like a quality of your ability to do that in some ways, because now so much of it is automated by either the support agents, or, I mean, it is still stuff that people read too. So
I've seen a lot of companies, especially with web apps, where you're on a particular page and at the top right or on the question mark, it says, view documentation. It takes you directly to the specific page that corresponds to the page you're on, which is great. I kind of call that like contextual documentation, which is awesome. But I wonder if there's actually a world where AI is in the loop, and based on the events that the customer took, they clicked here, they clicked on this feature, they click help. What if it takes you to the correct documentation page? Or actually, what if the documentation creates a like proactive response that says, based on what your clicks and your keystrokes, it seems like you probably have a question about this. I wonder if there's like some way to do this proactive customer support using your docs, where customers don't even have to leave the app, but they're still getting the benefit of your docs. I like, you want as many people visiting your customer docs as possible, but your customers may want as few customers visiting their docs as possible, but they still want the information in their docs to be served to the customer the right place at the right time, whether that be in app, in Discord, in Slack. It's I don't know. There's so much to unpack here.
100%. So first and foremost, that's a great idea. We might look into that. I think the way in which I view the first and foremost is, I think the role of like this, like assistant within docs, like, that's using AI is like ever so growing by the day, right? Like, we changed the way we built our assistant experience recently to be a lot more like, it can actually help you take you to certain pages. It can actually fill in, like API values for you. It can actually, answer your questions based on, like finding sections of the docs, like all this really cool stuff that, LLMs now let you do. This is the first time I'm hearing about being proactive. I had to look into that. I think there is in my thought process like a user experience thing, because I don't know if I would want my chatbot to be like, hey, by the way, I saw you look at like top 4 pages here. maybe I'm cool with that. Maybe everyone's gonna be cool with that. Who knows? But I think to your point about like thinking this from a first principles perspective, it's totally right. It's like, at the end of the day, it's I think the way we view our role in the world is just about like getting people to the answers, right? Because nobody really, like wants to build docs for the sake of building docs, right? Like, or
they need to be built. You don't question.
Yeah, they need to be built. Exactly. They need to be built, and for reasons one way or the other, it's the only way to, like, or at least it's the industry standard for how to build and communicate content in the way that it is, right? But make no mistake, that's like not the kind of the problem, or the kind of the thing that people are really like striving for, right? It's about getting users the answers, right? That's all it is. Getting people the answer, giving them the information on how to build something. And I think the way we view things is that like, that's the part that's changing so quickly, is, in about, again, just 2 years ago, right? The best way to, find any sort of information is reading long page articles. You had to go into Google, you have to type in something, you have to find the article, you have to kind of like read through the whole thing, and you have to infer information, and hopefully it answers. And if it doesn't, you find the next article and you find the next page. Same thing in docs, right? It's like you had to write this encyclopedia, and then people have to skim through pages of encyclopedia and then like find the right answer. And again, hopefully they do, hopefully, but some don't, who knows? But now it's like, what LLMs are good at is like, they act as like this wormhole almost, right? Where it's like, you just type in question, they get an answer, right? Or it's like, you want something, boom, it's there, right? In like the AID world. And I think that's kind of like this really big shift in like how everything is transforming, for our eyes, which is, I also think about, poor Stack Overflow. I don't remember the last time I landed myself on.
Have you seen that graph of its usage, and then it just going down.
I just imagine it plummeted, right? Like
it was all over.
Yeah.
It was all over my LinkedIn a few months ago of like page views to Stack Over. Yeah, like there's been a lot of this. Actually, I feel like this. We talked about this a couple weeks ago about like SEO versus GEO. I feel like now is a good time. I don't know that much about it. I know that it's important, but maybe you can school me on GEO.
Yeah. The short answer is nobody does.
Okay.
Like,
All right, good.
Yeah. So I mean, like the short answer is we have blogs, and you know, our marketing team did some really wonderful job doing deep dives into GEO. And I think you know, the lovely folks at Andreessen and you know, other great firms who do a lot of market research, they've like, you know, published a lot of great pieces on their findings of GEO. In short, the only thing we've experienced is a pretty big chunk of SEO converting to GEO now, right? Like, so Google search declined, I think, for the first time in April, I believe it was, by a non-trivial amount, because people are now asking answers and getting answers directly, you know, with ChatGPT or Claude. And the only thing that we've noticed is that we have also seen an increase in traffic to our site coming directly from ChatGPT, right? So for instance, if you're out there looking like, hey, I want the best, you know, like AI, you know, editing studio, you know, you really want that people in ChatGPT are getting links to captions, right? And you can bet that there are a lot of people asking those things right now, right? And so the question then naturally becomes, okay, how do you get yourself in front of those? How do you get listed on that stuff? A lot to unpack for that topic. But I do think there's a new generation of tooling built around this. And there's a slight variation in the way people think about SEO that's converting now to GEO and how this unfolds. Again, a lot more on the topic that might change even in the next few months. So I can only speak on it so much, but definitely for, you know, the folks listening and, you know, and for Eli and everyone else thinking about it is like, it's a non-trivial part. And I think by the end of this year, it'll be like a pretty significant chunk of it as well. So stuff to think about.
I know you made an announcement a few months ago about the llms.txt. I actually didn't go too deep on what it actually was. Like I understand what it does, but like is it default for anyone who signs up for Mintlify, or like do we have to opt in?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I can walk through the history very briefly about llms.txt and then about like the whole story, because we found it really fascinating. So llms.txt is a proposed standard for websites, specifically to convey information to LLMs essentially while they're crawling through the entire, you know, history of the web to find all the information that it's trained on. And so the intention of llms.txt is to basically be like a sitemap, right? So in the SEO world, you have to build sitemaps for every single website, telling you what links, you know, the Google crawler should go to. But in the world of LLMs, the proposed standard is using llms.txt. I forgot the exact person who literally just put up a website one day. Is a very influential developer. It's the name's not coming to me, so I hope they're not listening. They put up a standard, and at least I think for the first year or so, it was really under the radar. Some people knew about it. Some people might have heard about it. I definitely don't think the LLMs were actually really indexing a lot of it. And it was just like this open proposal out in the wild. And some indie developers, you know, might have heard of it, think it's really fascinating. There's like some discussions in like the developer world and community. So we at Mintlify started to see some of our like friends, just for the sake of saying they're LLM friendly, add llms.txt to their website. So for instance, it would be like, we started to see like, I don't know, example techco dot, you know, /llm.txt started to pop up, and they make tweets about it. And, you know, we were like, at Mintlify, we were like, you know, like, let's go make a message about this. I feel like it's a cool enough thing. Like, you know, I don't know if this is actually going to be useful, but let's go put this out in the world. Let's just make this available for all of our customers. And it kind of communicates what we're trying to get to, which is to make the content more LLM indexable, right? And so we literally just built this over the course of, I think, a few days. It was literally just like, I think it was like a Monday, for instance, right? We built it out, and then the next day we deployed it to all of our customers and made a tweet about it. That post went pretty viral, for starters. But I think what we didn't expect was how much that kicked off the race for llms.txt. Because the next thing we knew, people were writing blogs about it. People were making these websites on, all the websites where llms.txt is registered. And surprise, surprise, it was just all the docs that Mintlify powers. You know? And more importantly, it was some of the big LLM providers. So, you know, we power the docs for Anthropic. And so when Anthropic had it, they were suddenly like, oh my goodness, Anthropic is now doing this. And then it kind of came this massive snowball effect where everyone started to look at the industry like, hey, we need to build llms.txt all of a sudden. And that just started snowballing. Anthropic, realizing now that everyone's doing them, started to care a lot more about it. And then I think OpenAI in the world of it, they also started to index it as well. So again, I don't get to take any credit for inventing llms.txt. We literally just built it over the course of the weekend. But I think that's kind of been the big transformative shift that we've seen. And a little bit of a fun AI history for you guys, by the way, that may or may not be relevant in a few years, is llms.txt was the official standard. And so again, we just implemented based on those exact requirements. When we shipped it out, Anthropic, and hopefully I can say this, please don't get mad at me if anyone's listening, is that they came to us and they're like, hey guys, like I think llms.txt is super cool. I think you should add an extension of that called llms full. So llms-full.txt. And the difference between llms.txt is that llms.txt is designed to be a sitemap. So it links to all the pages. It actually isn't itself all the content, right? llms full is a huge dump of all the docs in markdown format that's available to you. They proposed that. They were just off the cusp, like, hey, just call it llms.txt, llms-full.txt. And so again, we implemented that, and that we've seen has been growing in adoption alongside llms.txt itself. The difference being that llms.txt is designed for LLM crawlers. llms full is actually what ParaHelp, for instance, is using to get all the content from the docs.
Got it.
So again, and I can go off a lot on the details here, but
no, that makes a lot of sense, because when we first deployed Mintlify like a year and a half ago, ParaHelp couldn't read every single part of your pages. So we made some changes to accommodate that. But after you launched that, because it could read everything, the format that humans saw on, help.captions.ai is irrelevant, because what the AI is actually, what the LLM is actually reading is a different version of that, which is in their language.
Exactly. It's just Markdown. LLMs prefer Markdown.
Yeah.
And so I think this was like a complete luck thing on our end. It was not a stroke of genius. Again, I promise. I am not that smart. What we did was we just chose Markdown because that was our preferred language. And now it's the preferred language of LLMs. And so if you're talking about building content and knowledge bases that really adhere to LLMs, it has to be rooted in Markdown. Or at least it needs to convert to it somehow. And so that's like a really important, actually an outsized impact of, I think, one of the decisions we were lucky to have gotten right in the early days.
Yeah, I think the same is actually for best practices for writing prompts, and like prompt engineering is also Markdown. I know that you're a YC alum, the ParaHelp guys are as well. If I'm sure you can go on YouTube and just type in like Y Combinator prompt engineering, or like, I forget exactly what it is, but they actually share some examples of the way that they actually use their prompts, and it's all like in Markdown, which I guess is some sort of a slightly better version of it. But I feel like for a while you had, there's like, so basically what I'm hearing is like, there's actually this competitive edge, and probably very few people are actually updating the LLM.txt or LLM full. So even for like marketing websites like Captions.ai or Mintlify.com, that is in Markdown. And is that an LLM full? That also might be like a short-term competitive advantage. I'm assuming that if this continues to take off and Anthropic's already embraced it, it seems like in some amount of months, this will be the standard. And if you don't have it, it's like ludicrous, but maybe it's actually a slight competitive advantage for the next few months.
I don't really think it's a deal breaker if you don't have it. So like, I think people, oh, do I need to go and add llm.txt to all my landing pages? I don't think so, honestly. I think it is an abstraction and a convenience for LLMs. I don't think it is a must. LLMs are equally good at being able to parse the entire internet's content, which is in just standard DOM and HTML, and that's what it's also good at doing as well. So I'm not like telling everyone that they need to go and like build their rebuild their site with llms.txt and all that stuff, or else their entire thing is invisible to them. I don't think that at all. I think that if you go do it, LLMs full is a genuinely helpful tool for building agents. llms.txt is a convenience for LLMs to better parse and better structure their understanding on Captions, on Mintlify, on any other company. It's more of an improvement. Again, not a be all.
If there's any page to do this to, documentation seems like the right one, considering it's feeding all of these AI agents and all this other stuff just for customer support purposes alone. That seems very worth it. So you didn't invent it, but you may have accidentally popularized it. I feel like
there's literally there's literally a blog post about how like we accidentally popularized it on the internet. It was like literally like how Mintlify like accidentally popularized llms.txt out there. So
I feel like another technology that you certainly didn't invent, but you were early on, was MCP and MCP servers. We chatted, I don't know, 5 months ago, and you're like, Eli, MCP, it's the future. I was like, and I have no idea what you're talking about. And sure enough, like it's incredible. I think, I don't know if we want to touch on that, but I feel like before the hour is up, like we have to talk about MCP servers, especially it's also related to insights because just a week or two ago, I think ChatGPT made an official integration with Intercom. And that I actually don't know if what ChatGPT is using MCP, because I know that's Claude. But essentially, it's a direct integration where if you said, okay, let's export my last 1,000 conversations. Let's either do that in Intercom or via API. Maybe your data scientist is looking for some insights into what customers are saying over the last week. What to me is like totally bonkers is a few years ago, we used to have, you need to be an engineer or a data scientist to hook up the API to Intercom to go extract it and then go run it through whatever you're going to run it through. A few months ago, you had to go export it and maybe ask ChatGPT. We're now skipping 2 steps, and I can just go at Claude or in Claude or in ChatGPT. Go to my Intercom, look at the last 1,000 conversations, distill it down to the top 5 feature requests and the top 5 bugs that are being reported, and you'll get an answer like right in Claude and right in ChatGPT. It's absolutely wild that there's this amazing tool that I feel like in our world, our LinkedIn, people are using it, but in the greater scheme of things, I don't think anyone's using this. I don't think anyone knows what MCP is.
Absolutely. And I think that if the industry does the job right, people should it, and they won't. I have, first and foremost, for the folks listening who might not be familiar on MCPs, I have a very simple analogy for this. I think right now LLMs is, I think of it almost like it's just a head, right? It's got, obviously a brain, it's got a mouthpiece, it tells you, it can look at images if you send it to them, your eyes and so forth. MCPs now gives it arms and legs. Oh, wow, that's a big question I floated.
Sorry.
I'll check it out in a second. I apologize. Okay. It's all good. MCPs now gives LLMs an arms and legs, but you have to equip it with what it can actually do, right? So instead of in previous times when, like an LLM is almost like a glorified chatbot, like the most intelligent chatbot there could be, MCP is the connector that now allows these LLMs to actually have and feel the real world and get information from it, right? So the analogy you mentioned with Intercom is you can now give this connector between the LLM and Intercom. And so it can actually on its own accord fetch information from Intercom, right? So if you ask a question like, hey, give me a summary of Intercom messages, it knows when to use that tool, makes a request to that tool, gets information back, does a little bit more processing, gives you an answer. Right.
I can give an even better, or not better, a more basic, depending on how technical. Actually, there's just like, you can actually connect it to your Google Calendar, and you can ask Google Calendar, hey, who am I meeting with today? There's no functionality for that, but you can say in Claude or GPT, who am I meeting with today, and give me a 1-sentence blurb of everyone I'm meeting with and what I should know, and look up their company and their latest funding, like all from one, like, prompt box. You can get that information. So this connector concept is, it's like a massive change how people and services talk to each other. I don't know if I cut you off or not, but do you actually think this is going to replace APIs? Is this an API replacement, or is it in addition to?
Yeah, it's definitely not an API replacement, because in the same way that, for instance, let's try to take a quick side tangent as analogous, is that people think that, because in the world of LLMs, do you need docs, right? For instance, the short answer is not in the current format that it is today, right? Like, even if people aren't reading docs, the source of truth of what needs to happen still needs to exist, right? But now it's read by LLMs, it's not read by humans, for instance. The same thing goes for APIs, right? In the world of APIs, you can't really have MCP tools that don't actually call the APIs, right? Intercom still needs to build and maintain that API in order to build the MCP tooling that connects the API to the LLMs, right? The LLM doesn't just know how to go inside, Intercom's database, and fetch data directly. It needs to still have, on the company side, build those services for them.
Makes sense. Yeah, that is true. And I think the other analogy that I think even Model Context Protocol.io uses is like, for the last 10 years or 15 years, if you've had cell phones from the early days, how many connector cords, Lightning, USB-A, C, whatever, this is the universal C that just clips on top of everything so that everything can talk to each other. That's the most like basic way to describe it, I think.
Exactly. It's proposed to be the standard formats for different LLMs to use, and then different people to build tooling for. And so at the end of the day, the power of MCP is really not so much about like it being a novel invention in some ways. It's just a standard of, here's a proposal that everyone, in order to be effective, everyone needs to adopt, right? And it seems like what the world is converging on now is that, okay, we're adopting it. So, so the real kind of like craze to this is not like Anthropic or OpenAI or any of these companies really did something truly novel. The technologies that like enable tool calling, which MCPs are based off of, has existed for at least the past year, right? What's novel now is that now there's a spec of here's what everyone needs to do, and people are finally agreeing to go do this. And so I remember kind of an anecdotal story to this is that I remember, back in November, Anthropic just pinged us randomly. They're like, hey, Han, like, could we get up a new like docs instance spun up? And I was like, oh yeah, sure. Like, of course, how can I help? And they're like, yeah, like, can we just set up this new docs instance? It's called, the Model Context Protocol. And I remember the first thing when I saw that, I heard that, I was like, this is the worst name ever. Like, I was like, so like that's like, you guys launching a new product with that, or something like that? And they're like, no, it's like this kind of like new proposal, this new spec. And then they built it out. I think I read it once. I was like, I don't get it. I was like, I have no idea what it does. And then I think in just a matter of like 4 months, the proposal blew up. And now obviously it's a major topic of discussion. So
to be fair, ChatGPT is also a terrible name. If you were to hire an agency to come up with a name, you would be laughed out of the room if you named it ChatGPT. Yeah. So
you know, I found out who came up with ChatGPT, by the way. I actually found out who. It's Paul Graham. So the founder of YC, apparently, he claims credit for coming up with ChatGPT as the name. And I remember because the reason I know this is because Hambi and I had the fortune of meeting him This is maybe like a year or two ago. And I remember we first met, and then we were talking about Mintlify. And literally for the entire 10 minutes, the first 10 minutes we were speaking, he completely shat on the name. He was like, what a terrible name. You guys got to go rename. And then he was talking about how great of a naming person he was, because he was like, oh, I came out with ChatGPT, but you know, and no offense to Paul Graham, I love PG, greatest person out there. But in my head, I was like, I don't know if that's really the best flex.
We'll
have to find out. Hannah,
you guys,
Hannah, what do you think?
This covers, well, I mean, as a marketer, it's not the best. That's all I'll say on this live webinar. I honestly feel like we need a whole new session just for Q&A. I think that's what somebody suggested in the chat, because we've had loads of really great questions come in. We probably won't get through them all, but I will just flag a few that people have liked throughout the session. So if we start with this top one from Nevada, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. This is a question specifically to Eli, which is, how are you thinking of the ROI of focusing on docs? As the head of CX, are you looking at ticket deflection or AI accuracy or something else?
Yeah, really, really good pointed question. I'll start first on the accuracy. Something that I've noticed on accuracy is when ChatGPT first came out, and even as recent as a year ago or 9 months ago, I was hearing the term hallucination a lot. And if you realize, it is no longer in anyone's vernacular, no one's using it. I don't know exactly what happened. Maybe we got over this hump of everyone figured it out. So I think accuracy comes down to how well trained your agents are, and your agents are only as well trained as the documentation that they have. So for me, accuracy is actually interesting. Any new thing that changes in our app that I need to train our agents on, again, both human agents and AI agents, it was weird at first just to call them human agents versus AI agents. I'm still getting used to it. But anything you would train a human agent on, you have to train an AI agent on, and vice versa. If there's actually no difference, the way in which you train them is different. We have 5 amazing customer support agents around the world. We offer 24/7 support. The reason that we're able to is that our AI agent ParaHelp can take the first at bat and kind of act as a filter. And if it can answer it, it's preventing it from getting to our human agent. And what we found is we have had the same team for over a year and a half now. What's really interesting is that, like, our agents are still as busy as they were before. They're just spending more time on more critical issues. And so I think the repeatable actions are going to the AI agent, and the ones that need to maybe get escalated to our engineers or escalated to product or need an extra look because they're asking about something legal or reporting something that you've never heard before. All of our agents basically got upgraded and promoted to a higher level. And then talk about ROI. I don't know, Nevada, if you run your own, can you still hear me? Yeah, can you still hear me? Okay, cool. Sorry, my AirPods. Yeah, I don't know if you run your own customer support org or not, but if you do, try and figure out what your cost per resolution is with your human agents. I think I've seen this number range anywhere from, $2, $5, as much as $20 or $25, especially if you think about a bank, right? Like, those people are well trained. There's always a call available. If you're doing phone support's often more expensive than chat support. So I would try and figure out what your cost per resolution is currently, and then try and figure out what the cost per resolution is with the AI agents. And I think documentation, I don't actually know if I can put a value on the ROI of documentation. As we said, it's something that you just need. And I think if your documentation is easy to update and it works into your workflow and your AI agent can reference it, it's worth it. I think all in all, docs are probably on one of the lesser expensive parts of running a customer support org.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I honestly wish we could do so many more questions, but we are almost out of time, I'm afraid. So yeah, thank you so much again for everybody coming today. If you weren't able to attend live, I will be sending this round to everybody, or if you just want to recap on something, it will be landing in your inbox shortly. A big thank you to Han and Eli for being today's guest speakers. Really awesome to get your insights. If you guys would like a Q&A session, do let me know in the comments. I have dropped my email in there, so if you want to let me know what you'd like to see next, I'm all ears. So yeah, and also if you'd like to continue the AI conversation, feel free to connect with Eli or Han on LinkedIn or myself. And yeah, and keep your eyes peeled for any future webinars we have coming up, as there will be more coming soon. So,
well, personally, I'm happy to do a part 2. Maybe this turns into a recurring series, but I'm definitely happy to do part 2 sometime in the future to pick up where we left off and do some Q&A.
Absolutely. And thanks so much for everyone for coming. You can also find me, and I know Tiff dropped her email. You can also find me at hana@mintlify.com. If you have any questions, I know we weren't able to get to all the Q&A stuff, so I apologize for that. But really appreciate everyone's time, and again, looking forward to hearing more from you guys and the great stuff that everyone's building.
Awesome. Thank you so much. Take care, everyone.
Awesome.
Thank you.
All right, take care, everyone. Bye.